I'm doing steering bushings now. When you can turn your steering wheel this far or farther and not have it turning the wheel, the problem is the steering rack bushings. So you got to get under the dashboard and you follow the steering down. That's it right there. Got the U-joints on. It's got 2 U-joints, and the U-joints never wear out, so don't even suspect that. And right there where it goes into the firewall is where the problem is. It's the upper bushing and the lower bushing inside the steering rack, the rack and pinion bushings. So you got to get the steering rack out and take it apart and replace the bushings and put it back together. Alright, we'll take the rack out. Inside the car, you gotta pull the carpet back. There's a bolt there. It's got a 14mm head and it's an 8mm bolt. And there's a bolt, yeah, right there next to the gas pedal. So below the gas pedal there's another bolt. And when you take, and then you got to take out the bolt in the steering. On my Coupe, I was able to take that one out and the one above up here, and then just slide this whole unit up, and it would fall off at the bottom. But I don't see the sedan doing that. So when you put it back in, you got to be a little talented to get it on the spline. In the engine compartment, there's a bolt on the firewall as part of the steering rack. I'm going to take that one out. There it is. It's next to the fuel line. You got to take these out. These are the 19mm on the steering, one on each side. You just loosen a little bit, and then there's a 14. Use a 14 if you can't get it with your hand. So 14 fits on this, and a 19 on that. So you got to take those loose. There it is, unscrewed. I unscrew them instead of busting them out of here because it'll destroy the boot that's on there. And then I use this stubby 14 wrench to grab the flats up here and turn it. So both sides are loose now. Now I'm hopefully you're going to be able to take the steering rack out without taking off the cooling fan. There is room on a Coupe, so I'll try it on a sedan and see if that works out. Alright, here it is out of the car. You can see. So that's the play. And we got to take it out or the steering will never be right. And all I had to do to get the steering rack out was take off the cooling fan, carburetor. I was going to drop the back of the motor like I used to do, but I'm not going to do that. Put it back in, I hope. Although it is an option. So you only have to take apart one side to get this piece out. When you turn this, your steering moves. So that's how the steering works on Honda 600 if you don't know. Now, I'm only going to take apart this end. So I'm going to knock out these. There's some tabs right there that have to get bent over. So here we are with the tabs bent down on both sides. And then before you try to unscrew this thing, preferable if you could put a wrench or something on it like that to hold the whole thing from twisting. And then use a 17 on the end of that tie rod end and unscrew it. Alright, so now it's loosened, and it loosened pretty easily too. So, I mean, not like it was going to fall off the car, but as you can see here, it's just unscrew this here. And then the safety tab is there. Take that off with the washer. The safety tab is the one with the ears on it. And I think these are the same as Honda Civic, the early Civic. Alright, I'm going to take apart the attention. It's already loosened the nut, and this is a 10 square piece on the top here. And you want to pay attention to when these pieces come out. So the side with the pinion on it has a nut and O-ring. The center got 2 springs. And it's got a piston underneath it. So we're going to take this one out. It's on the opposite end, the right side of the car. This one's got the bolt, the nut, and the O-ring. And it's only got 1 spring. And that spring is slightly shorter than opposite spring. This side here actually has a piston with a hole in the middle and a Teflon button in the bottom. Now it may not be Teflon, it might be nylon, but I've never seen one that's worn out. This is the big one on the bottom of the pinion, so I already loosened it. So this one's got a grease cup, not a fitting, it's full of grease. I don't see an O-ring on that one. You got to crank the rack out before you can get the pinion out. It comes out the bottom because it's got a giant washer on the bottom with a notch in it. And the bushing in the top is held on by a little retainer. So you pop out the retainer and push out the bushing. So there's that little nylon or Teflon, you don't know which. You can push it up either way. You can see the piece there. It's got a piece hanging down. That goes to the bottom, toward the ground. That's the one with the bushing in it, and this one here is kind of jammed in. So I'm going to knock it out and then I'll get back to you. Same thing on this one. It's got an angle piece. Goes to the bottom. This is the one without the hole in it. And here's the rack. Just pulled it straight out after I unscrewed it. So you can see it's all intact. Now I got to clean all this stuff up. So here's the other bushing and the retainer for the bushing. Just knock it straight through. Put it in your vise and hammer through. You can catch the edge of the bushing with a screwdriver, and this thing pops out automatically. And you reuse it. Alright, here's what happens to the steering rack bushings. This is a steel sleeve, and they put rubber on the outside, and they put a bronze bushing on the inside. So you can see how small that is. This is the size it's supposed to be. I make these bushings when I have time. So I'm going to put this thing back together now. I had it all cleaned up as best I can. It's aluminum with bronze sleeves, steel center. So let's see how that goes. When I was cleaning the housing, this little spacer fell out. It's underneath of the bottom bushing. That's where it fell out. So we'll put that back in if we need it. Yes, we need it. And when I make the bushings, I make them the same length as the originals. They're 688 thousandths. If you have the big blue manual, turn to section 10 on steering. It tells you how to take the steering rack apart and where the bushings are. And best yet is please use a stethoscope to diagnose your steering rack. If you got a noise you can't find, don't forget to use your stethoscope. So they're showing it on the steering rack. Well, you'd have to have some help there. Somebody's going to have to turn that thing for you, that steering wheel thing. So anyway, and it tells you how to put it all together and set the tensions, and how not to over tighten the nuts because it's aluminum housing, and that stuff there. And then it tells you how to reset your alignment, which I do with tape measures, 2 tape measures, and I set it so my alignment is 1/8 inch towed in. It says here 2 millimeters. That's actually less than 1/8 of an inch. Slick 50 grease is what I like, but you use whatever you want. And I put the new bushings in, the ones I made, and I set it all up so that it's got a nice feel when I turn it. So all the slop's gone and it turns smoothly. I'm going to put the boots back on and put this piece back on over here. And the other thing is, you know that your tie rod ends are in good shape when you put them up any position and they don't just fall down. So these are like new. This car's got 71,000 miles on it, so I think it's in pretty good shape. I put the bushing retainer in with a deep well socket, 16 millimeter, straight over the top, and just hammered it into place till it stopped. And the next thing you want to do is center the steering rack. So you want to turn it all the way to one side. So it's going to be here. And then you want to count how many rotations it is to make it to the full other side. So 1, 2, almost 3. So then you want to go back 1.5. So 1.5.